Happy Monday. I hope everyone has a great start to their week and something always about your mindset. And as the great Jim Rohn says, you can always have more than you've got because you can always be more than you are. And on the flip side of things, if you don't change who you are, you'll always have what you've got. So that message goes to all of us as we embark on a new journey, a new conversation. And remember, your brain is programmed for two primary needs, certainty and comfort. And anything you knew is going to be uncertain and uncomfortable. So just want you to lean in because I want all of us to be prepared as these new compensation changes come and we go through one of the biggest shifts that we're ever going to have in this industry. And what I know is for the agents that are prepared, this is going to be the biggest money grab you will ever have in your life. So what we're going to talk about today is how to communicate compensation with buyers. And communicating compensation is really simple. And if we think about the best luxury brands in the world, people pay a high value for these things because they see a direct result or a direct benefit in what they're getting in return for the amount of money that they're paying. Now, let's think about your business and working with buyers. The number one question that we all have is, how do we effectively communicate our value? So in exchange, a buyer agrees to pay us compensation for our services, regardless of what is being offered by the listing. So when I think about this, the first thing is your compensation, what you get paid for, clear, concise, and quantifiable? Is it clear as to what you offer the other party? Is it concise and specific what they get? And is quantifiable in how it shows up in the way it's presented to them? And for many of us, the answer is no. So I'm going to share our buyer experience scorecard. And there are a few things I want you to do. Number one, I want you to take this and make it your own. All of us do our business in our own unique way. There are parts of this that you can pull from that'll work for you. For some of you, you want to use the whole thing. And for others of you, you want to do a compilation or a combination of both. So when you think about this, you'll want to turn this into a client-facing document where you can ask a buyer a simple question. Have you ever wondered what an agent does in exchange for the compensation they get paid? The answer for every client is going to be yes, because it is vague. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is ask yourself, what are the most common objections? And the most common objections are really clarifying questions that people have in their mind in regards to what they're getting in exchange for what they're paying. Now, the first thing is people think that agents just open doors. People think that the transaction is easy. People don't understand all of the things that go into it. So if you look at it, it's what exactly do you do for me? How exactly is what you're getting paid for show up in services? Why can't I do it on my own? Why shouldn't I go directly to the listing agent? So all of your process should answer those questions. And if I were a buyer's agent today, I'd create an FAQ, like the most frequently asked questions, and an SAQ, a should ask questions. And the should ask questions would be questions and answers to the most common objections. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. So if you look here to this buyer experience scorecard, now, one of the things that we'll talk about in another session of the 4 Seasons method is how to use this to effectively grade yourself. But for the sake of today and communicating compensation, the first part is the consultation. When we say asking the right questions, that's really the med C. So if I were doing this and I was communicating and I would say, we want to get a clear understanding of what your motivations are, what your expectations are of partnering with an agent, what past disappointments you've had with agents and service providers so you can ensure they don't happen this time around, and identifying your concerns with making a move at this time. The next part is explaining the market. Now, I would turn this into like a book where it kind of details out what goes into each. Now, when I think about explaining the market, I would say Our goal in this part is to understand and review the market based on your goals, your expectations, and what you feel is the right deal for you. This is a comprehensive review of properties that have sold in the last 18 to 24 months to align your goals, your expectations with what other buyers have been willing to pay for homes. So we understand going into the market, how we set ourselves up for success. The next part is explaining multiple offers. This is an in-depth analysis of how to create a competitive advantage when entering a multiple offer situation. And you could kind of break down even in some details and bullet points what your strategy is. Reviewing disclosures. We will go through and review all the necessary disclosures and information that's both provided to us by listing agents, as well as the ones that we do internally with you. So we ensure that we're acting as your fiduciary. Explaining the home buying process. And under this, I would write my favorite line is anyone taking the time to share with you the home buying process. This is the difference between hiring an agent and having a partner. Partners have mutually aligned goals, and we want to ensure that you know the entire process from start to finish so that we're working together and you always know what comes next. Now, when you're talking about this, what you're going to want to talk about is having the buyers in a true partnership where at no point do they feel rushed, pressured, or caught off guard based on what's coming next. Reviewing closing fees. We'll provide an in-depth analysis of what is required based on your local and state municipalities for closings. Many people feel and believe that the funds required for closing and purchasing a property are nothing more and less than the down payment, inspection costs, as well as any other fees of lawyers, title companies, etc. The next part is explaining the written offer or bidding process. We'll take an in-depth analysis of what is the difference between writing a successful offer and positional bartering. We will create a unique offer based on the benefits that you provide as a buyer to set yourself up for success in winning a home. The buyer questionnaire. This is an in-depth analysis of how we can not only find you a great home where you're going to build your memories, to understand the community that you want to live in where your life happens. Our goal is to find the perfect home that pairs the two together. So this is where in an in-depth analysis, you're able to ask all these questions. So when we're reviewing and filtering homes for you, that we're checking off the right boxes, that the home is more than just bedrooms and bathrooms, that it aligns with your lifestyle. Sharing helpful resources. Say we have compiled a list of vetted vendors and services so you don't have to look for random strangers on Google. We'll provide this list to you up front, and you can always use our name when referring to these vendors as a starting point for many of you. Now, the next part is post-meeting action steps. Now, obviously, this is for you, but you could turn this into a client-facing document as well. And I would say documenting the important points for a consultation. At the end of our consultation, from understanding what the right deal is for you, the unique position you have in multiple offers, what's most important to you based on the buyer questionnaire, and any other personal details that are valuable in the home buying process, we'll document into our CRM. The next step is we'll curate a collection for you, which is an interactive, collaborative way of purchasing a property where we can ensure that nothing is lost in multi-platform communications. We're able to create a visual representation of all the homes you have and collaborate all of our conversations into one place. Based on the collection and your specific needs, we're then able to engage and create comments for additional points and things you could think about. This is a perfect place for us to ask you questions and you to ask us questions. Now, when it comes to touring properties, there's a lot more that goes into than making a simple phone call. We'll not only coordinate the appointments based on when's best for your schedule, we will provide you a confirmation email with the addresses of the properties, the times of the properties, a map that has all the directions, as well as a tour information and a digital version of show sheets. So you can review everything in advance prior to going out, ask any questions, eliminate any properties, or if you find anything additional to add. Post our showing, We'll collect and organize all the feedback. We're able to either do this by putting the comments in collections, or in some cases, we'll ask you questions that we'll put into a voice note that we'll document into one place. And after, we'll send you a post-tour recap. This is a place where you put your feedback into one email for you to review, have any additional questions you have in the email for you to review additionally, and see if there's anything else you want, as well as a clear timeline and deadline on when we'll get you the information back. The next part that we will go through is writing the offer. Now, in writing the offer, we're going to review what comparable homes have sold, what other buyers have been willing to pay for homes, your unique feedback from the property tours, and see how the properties align with what your ideal home is. We'll uniquely position you as a buyer based on our proprietary formula on writing winning offers, which we've shared with you and showed you a sample of during our initial consultation. We'll then write and submit the offer on your behalf and open up the negotiations. Once we have an accepted offer, the next part is going through the inspection and appraisal process. We want to ensure that prior to going to the inspection, we're aligned with what your expectations are, what the seller's expectations are, and what are the most important things that we're looking for in an inspection. Now, a common thing that buyers think is an inspection is an opportunity to renegotiate, which is not the case. You want to make sure that there's no mold, no asbestos, there's no roof damage, and that the major mechanicals and everything that was represented to you at the time of the listing is correct. A great example is a boiler. If you see an old boiler, they're not going to generally give you credit for it, as an inspector's job is to find everything wrong in the house. And the way that we like to think about inspection reports, it is a roadmap for your future as a homeowner in what to put maintenance into, how long things are going to last, so that you can budget appropriately. If there are any items that we have to address, we'll go through and negotiate the repair request. From then, we'll either, depending on your state, open up escrow or go into deal sheets. Now, in escrow states, many times you do the inspection after the fact. So follow this process based on your local way of doing business. Once the contract is executed and the inspection phase is completed, one of the main things that you're now going to want to do is start communicating with your vendors, because this is the time that you start planning to move. So we'll provide you a comprehensive checklist. Now, make this based on your unique experience so that they have a timeline of what they need to do prior to moving forward. Now, this could include things like contacting your landlord, providing notice, taking the time off of work, contacting movers, starting packing, changing and canceling utilities. And we'll provide a complete resource guide with a timeline and booklets, and a booklet that walks you through this process as a partner that you have an entire checklist going forward. The next part is coordinating the appraisal. Now, there's a saying you have to sell the house twice, once to the buyer and once to the bank. Now, in doing this, we'll want to prepare the comparable properties that we use to make the offer and provide them to the appraisal at that time to ensure that there are no surprises during the appraisal. Closing time. We're going to want to have, I'm going to take a step back. While this is going, we'll be still communicating with you once a week just to make sure that things are on track and that you don't have any questions. You don't ever feel like you're going through this process alone, because partners do things together. Service providers can do things and make people feel isolated at times. Now, closing time, we want to walk you through the entire closing process. We'll coordinate the final walkthrough and ensure that everything is swept, broom cleaned, any repairs are made. And in many cases, we'll walk the property before we even bring you there. This is where we'll provide a final checklist to look through as we go through the home based on the appraisal, the inspection, and any other notes that we've had. We want to make sure that you change the electric, communicate with the HOA. Based on TRID disclosures within 48 hours prior to the closing, we'll provide you all of the final numbers that you'll need to show up with the closing. We'll want to check in with the attorney and see the status of how everything's going. And this works differently depending on how the closing process works in an escrow or non-escrow state. We'll want to review the repairs, follow up on any last minute questions and needs. And this is your more internal thing, sending a gift. Now, after the property's closed, this is where you start creating your own unique experience. So this is how you effectively communicate compensation with the buyer. Now, after they're closed, there are a couple of things that you want to highlight here is, what are all the benefits of working with you post-closing? So if you have client events, monthly check-ins, anything that's there, this is where you want to communicate it to them. And again, I put this into a branded document. So when you're communicating compensation with buyers, this is the entire process that you're going to want to go through step by step by step. You can provide them a booklet they can review, but I would be doing this in a very thoughtful, curated way. And I would have a red flag for anyone that doesn't want to go through this. Now, this is the very challenging part. Look, when you're in a market where commissions are being cut, they're discounters, there's high interest rates, so buyers are on the fence about things. There's low inventory, so there's not that many choices. People are going to have uncertainty. And in uncertain situations, having information is the most effective way to make sure that you're in the right situation for yourself. So if buyers don't want to go through this and they want to dictate the process, here's the lines I would use. I would say, hey, John, look, I really appreciate the fact that you feel that you're prepared to purchase a home and that you just want to go out and look at properties. But based on our experience, we look to be partners to our clients and not agents. Would it be okay if I explain the difference? And they're going to say yes. In being true partners, we go through a collaborative process together where you have the right to understand. Notice how I say the right, because that empowers the other person. The right to understand what you're paying compensation to a buyer's agents for, what the entire process is, how you set yourself up for success, how you review the market based on your goals, your expectations, and what you feel is the right deal for you or your family. And we walk you through the entire process so you're prepared start to finish. Is that something you feel that you could align yourself with and see the clear benefits of? And if they say no, you can say, respectfully, I feel based on my experience as an agent, it's irresponsible just to bring somebody out there because it's the largest financial purchase you'll make in your life. And we don't want there to be any problems, challenges, or any kind of potential buyer remorse. And when we leave out steps to this process, we can't ensure, one, we get the results that you're here for us for. And number two, we know there's a high probability of something going wrong for the buyer throughout the process. And pause and say there are thousands of agents that'll just take anybody out. And if that's the experience you're looking for, I'm not the right broker. Believe me, when you say this, you'll get rid of all the bad clients and you'll keep the right clients that align with you and your values. Now, we're going to open this up to group discussion now that we'll have facilitated by one of our coaches for you to start sharing a compilation of what the best practices are that you're doing when working with buyers. We'll then turn this into a doc that we can share with everybody. So what success looks like is I'm able to do blank and blank, and that helps me get a buyer broker's agreement. One of the things our clients enjoy with us about us the most is blank and blank. Now, this is a great place to ask questions, share value. And as always, we encourage you to get into accountability groups or find a role play partner to go through this with, where either you could practice presenting the buyer consultation or the buyer pitch, or you can work on creating what this looks like for both of you together. And tomorrow we'll go through communicating your compensation with sellers. So take it from here.
Okay, welcome back. So starting with our client experience scorecard, that's the checklist that Chirag was working with there. He shared with us an approach to sharing the value of any stage of this process that we offer. I'm curious how many of you approach these things the way he does. For example, how many of you prepare an FAQ and an SAQ, right? He said FAQ, frequently asked questions, and SAQ, should asked questions, which is all the common objections, both asked and answered. How many of you provide other checklists and information all bundled up and branded nicely for your clients? And how about that question at the end? How many of you have said to clients, hey, if you're looking for somebody to just take you out, good luck with that, but that's not me, right? Or he obviously said it in different words. How many of you have the courage to discourage a client even at the very early stage of things? So I'm curious to just start here with our conversation by putting into the chat what's one word or two words that describe how he approached all this stuff from your point of view? Brilliant, crazy, clear, confusing. What words come to mind for you when you think of all that he just shared with us? He went through the whole buyer's process briefly in 15 minutes. Let's hear from a couple more of you. What words come to mind if you think about all that he just shared? Clear, prepared, organized, honest, organized, succinct, prepared, but a tad too technical, could be, absolutely. Thorough, methodical, very clear, clear and amazing, straightforward, smooth, direct. Remember the three words that he opened this with: clear, concise, quantifiable. Chirag and I have been coaching a lot of you for the last 3 years, and I believe that not too many people can really answer yes to all these three questions. If I say, is your presentation of your value to everyone clear, concise, and quantifiable? In most cases, in my experience working with people, no, we're not quite there yet. We have more to do. And it's not enough to say, oh, well, I've been in this field for 15 years. I know what I'm doing, or I've done this 1,000 times before. There's still the premium on our being able to communicate it clearly, concisely, and quantifiably. As Chirag has said many times, the single greatest skill that you have is the ability to talk effectively with people. And if you were in my call last Wednesday, I do calls every Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern. And one of the points I was making last Wednesday was people will not be influenced by you until they feel related to by you. And what that means is you have to communicate with them in a way that they can connect to what you're saying and how you're saying it. And if you can do that, you'll win every pitch. You'll win every opportunity that you have to inspire or motivate the other person to work with you as opposed to somebody else. But it might mean that you need to rework how you say things, might need to rework how you present information to people. So what we'd like to do now is have everyone put into the chat one tactic or technique or approach or phrase that gets great results for you. I want you to be really specific here. If I say to you, what works time after time for you when working with buyers at any stage of the process? Don't just put the word collections, or don't just put the word listen. I'd like to hear a specific sentence or maximum 2 sentences about what works for you, because we're going to create this master list between today's this session and this morning's session, and then give it all back to everybody. So think about how you can say what works for you in a way that somebody else on the call will benefit from hearing it. So take a moment to put something in the chat that works well for you. We should have at least 75 entries here out of the 85 people. I'll make allowance for some people who think that they don't really do any of this stuff well working with buyers. That's fine. But I assume that everybody has, just about everybody has something useful for someone else to hear. Sending over a buyer's guide before initial showings. Honesty and transparency. How may I most help you to make this process of buying home enjoyable? Buyer consultations, walking through the escrow process in SoCal. Being transparent and honest. I help the client narrow down their choices by having them rate each house after each showing. Is number 3 better than number 1, etc. Empowering buyers with timeliness and links to pertinent people. Well, you know, that one takes a lot of listening, certainly. All right, so as few people still enter that, I'd like to ask Marcia Loring to come off mute, please. I just wanted to ask you a question about that. Marcia, can you come off mute, please? And just share with us for a moment, when you say empowering buyers with timelines and with links to pertinent people, what does that actually mean?
I create a timeline as a PDF document that has links to phone numbers, email addresses of everyone that's involved in our transaction. And I send them an all-day event during the term of our transaction period with a link to a cloud document that has all that information in it, and I update it as we go along the process. So what happens is they may still call me for phone numbers and email addresses, but I get very few phone calls for that because they have it at their fingertips in a manner that's convenient for them. By doing an all-day event, I'm not interrupting the flow of their business day or personal day with an event.
Got it.
And my clients like it and it works well. It takes setting up a template that I update, as we go along, but it works. They like it. And I'm making them feel empowered, yet they're seeing my name, my logo, my everything every time they go there.
Yep. Got it. Thank you. This is what we mean by being like digestible, right? It's packaged, it's branded nicely, but it's being thought of within the kind of framework of how the client might need to use it, right? It's not like, here's all the information I want you to have. It's what information do I think you might ask for or want to have, and I'll organize it accordingly. All right, let's hear from Deborah Sweeney. Deborah said, explain.
Can I just add?
Oh yeah, one more thing.
Yeah, one more thing. I feel that it has worked well because my clients have felt very open to say, you know what, this is great, but if you did this, it'd be even better.
Yeah, sure.
So it's improved over time, and having them interacting and involved with it, I think, is a bonus for me.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. Most of this stuff is iterative or should be. And so, if you're afraid to like put something out there because you're not sure how it would be received, just put it out there and you'll find out how it's received. And the feedback that you get will allow you to make it better. All right, I'd like to just ask, thank you for that. I'd like to just ask Deborah Sweeney to come off of mute for a minute. Deborah said, explaining briefly how we will write a competitive offer and overcome their contingencies in the competitive market. Can you just give us an example of that, Deborah? What might that sound like?
Sure. So in our market here in Delaware and Pennsylvania, as you know, the inventory's very tight, and many times a cash offer is accepted above a financed offer. And many of my clients are first or second time buyers, so we need to overcome that cash offer in some way by strengthening other areas. So I always try to encourage perhaps as high an escrow deposit as possible that makes the offer stand out, perhaps talking about how we can still have an inspection, but maybe work on some maximum, costs for any repairs.
Can you imagine that I'm the client and you're sitting in front of me and that's where we are in our conversation? And can you talk to me as if I were the client so I can get a sense of what that sounds like?
So you mean as far as the whole process for this?
Yeah, so we're in this stage of the process and we're up to that point and you want me to understand this stuff and I'm the client and I don't understand it. So can you just like do a role play right now? This is how, you would say it to a client like me.
Sure. So I would just say that I would explain that.
No, don't say I would explain. Just tell me, David, let me tell you something.
Okay, David, let me tell you, that we are in a very tight inventory market, and you saw a lot of people come through with the open house and today, and even seeing the number of cars parked out in front of other open houses, that there are going to be a lot of offers on this home. And we need to think of ways that we can make your offers stand out to the seller. So to do that, I would suggest that we understand that you have a pre-approval for a loan. Let's talk to your loan officer about writing that letter and making your maximum as high as possible and something that you are comfortable, most importantly, with. And let's talk about the highest amount that you can put down in an escrow deposit. Understand that that money will be credited to you at closing, so you don't lose that money. And talking about how we can manage inspections, whether we need to explain to the buyer that we will not ask for major defects to be repaired up to a certain amount. But again, emphasizing this is something that you have to be comfortable with. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yep. Got it. Thank you. Thank you for demonstrating, especially on the spot like that. So the point here, folks, is we all have a way of approaching these things. And, the reality is, if we ever fail in influencing the person in the direction that we like, that's an opportunity for us to rethink how we're bringing ourselves to that particular conversation, right? If you're winning every single listing agreement, if you're winning every single buyer consultation, then don't change what you're doing. But if you're batting anything less than 1,000, this is an opportunity for all of us to think again about, how do I approach this? And what are some other ways that I could think of approaching it? Right? Chirag went through very briefly in 15 minutes, a whole lot of stuff. And he was just doing that for our benefit. And like that comment that popped up at that time, no, we're not expected to take everybody through every inch of it. Some people might want to hear it all, so you need to be prepared. Some people might be more interested in one step of the process or another. No matter what, you need to be prepared to be able to handle that part of the conversation in a clear, concise, and quantifiable way. And you may think you do, but if you spend some time role playing with other people, whether it's somebody here in the CSC community or another agent that you feel comfortable with, you've known for a while and you trust, you should be doing that work, because through doing that work, you come out with a way that sounds clear, concise, and quantifiable. And then you win in the marketplace. For anybody who ever says, wow, Chirag has such a great way of putting it, guess how he got there? He wasn't born that way. He practiced and practiced and practiced. And not to say his way is the only effective way, but you have to find an effective way for yourself. And that's one opportunity of being part of the accountability groups here at CSC. So thank you, everybody. We're a couple of minutes over for today. Great to see everybody. Looking forward to see you again tomorrow, where we'll be talking about this further. One final thing, the checklist that we started with today is available on the platform, like all of our materials are 24/7. That one is called the Client Experience Scorecard. And there's one for sellers and there's one for buyers. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow.